Yo, the anxiety is real, let me tell you. But I'm back. I'm back as promised. Maybe slightly late, actually, maybe a whole lot late. But nevertheless, I'm back here once again. This time I'm not alone. I'm joined by, well, you know what? I'm not too good at introductions. So why don't you introduce yourself?
I go by the realist, pretty much on every platform and on Twitter. I don't know, man. I'm not good at introducing myself. I
Neither,
play
right? I
games,
think
right?
I
I
think you
play
did pretty good.
games, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
that's
know
why
what
I'm
that
here,
is,
man.
bro. Yeah. So that's exactly why you're here, because we play games on a multitude of platforms. Consoles, PC to some extent, but especially recently with the Steam Deck. Now, y'all know the last time I was on here, I did a live stream of the unboxing. Day one, I was very, very fortunate. You know, thanks to owning
Yeah,
two
lucky
phones and
you.
having the website all loaded up and everything ready to go to make that order, I was able to get it day one. But now I'm not the only Steam Deck owner I know that I can speak to. Realist, you have one as well. Which
Yes,
model did
sir.
you get?
The 512. I mean, if you're gonna look, if you have a Switch, like the first model was like 32, and there wasn't much
Mm-hmm.
that you can do with it. And then the thing with the Switch was some of the bigger games they had you to like do half on your disc, no matter, I mean, your SAN disk, no matter how big it was, and then the
Mm-hmm.
other side um on the actual onboard storage. So I didn't know how they were going to handle this, and there was no way I was going to. I mean, PC games are way bigger too. You know, some of
Potentially,
the
yeah.
indies, some of the indies. I mean, I got like big games too, like mostly big games. The Steam Deck, more than the Switch, makes me want to play more indie games. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
it opened my eyes to a whole. I mean, first it was like Game Pass because I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I was like everybody else. AAA. I want to see the pretty graphics, and then start to look into these indie games. And the Steam Deck, man, I don't know what it is. I just want to play something, and I want to try these games, and they promote them well, right? Kind of encourage you to look here, because you like that, you know. And because I played Hades, and
Ah.
I had a few other Devolver. I got Not Tonight. I don't know if you know anything about that. It's
Not
like the
tonight.
government's, yeah, the
I've never
government's
heard of it. I know
dirty.
about the Volver. The government is dirty. Oh, I know about the Volver, but I've not heard about this game. Okay, so the dirty government. Okay, okay, you got me
Yeah,
intrigued.
yeah.
Realistic
So the
sounding
first
already.
one, I mean, it looks like a Nintendo game. And when I say Nintendo, I mean Nintendo, like the NES. Like like if you were just looking at it, you might not be interested if you're like a graphics whore or you're looking for the cutting edge. It's about the story, and I'm barely into it. But when I heard his name is Mike Rose, when I heard him speak about it, I can't remember whose podcast he was on, and is it Evolver? The Descenders. What publishing house
Descenders.
handles Descenders? Do you know?
I think that's the Volver Digital. That sounds familiar. Now, there's a name I've
It,
heard before. I'm not really
yeah, I
sure
mean
of the
that.
game style, but I've heard of it at least.
Yeah, that was a decent title that was in Game Pass. So I heard him, basically go over a lot of his games, and there were games and none of them I heard of, but the way he spoke about Not Tonight, and then when I got my Steam Deck, I said, you know what, man, let me play that. Funny, it's not uh confirmed anything, but I can play. Uh in most games that say they're not confirmed, you can still go in the
Yeah.
desktop mode and play it.
Well,
But
even some games that they say it's not supported, I'd even use the Proton experimental, and that stuff we'll discuss a bit later on. But yeah, there's lots of games
mm,
that say it's not compatible, but it starts right up with no shenanigans or anything. You just install the game, hit play, and it launches like Tekken 7. It's
yep,
not just yellow, it's red. Like it's not supposed to work at all. It's worked day one. King of
yep, the
Fighters
big no
15,
sign.
day one. Project Wingman
Well,
works just
15
fine.
isn't 15 on the list though.
If It's on. Well, at first it was on the red list. I think now it's on the green list. But at the time when the Steam Deck was out day one, it worked day one. A lot of games, that have been marked as not playing. Now 15, I believe, yeah, indeed they went back and they, and marked it as playable. But yeah, day one it worked, even though it was marked as not playable, expressly not playable. But yeah, I bought the 512. Came back to the original question. I bought the 512 for many reasons. I know the reason you bring up among them, but also I plan to do some dual booting. Into Windows when they finally have that. We finally have all the drivers for Windows. We just need the SteamOS update. When they finally release SteamOS to everybody. That's when they'll release.
Say they. Who's they?
As Valve.
Valve.
Valve Software, the creators, of Steam and the Steam Deck, Valve Corporation rather. Okay. They plan to release SteamOS when it's complete. Let's say 3.0, I guess, would like the launch version I had. So maybe it'll be like a 3.1, but it'll be a public release of the operating system, because all you can really get now is like a recovery image. If you want to wipe your system and start from scratch, you can get that, but you can't get the actual operating system SteamOS as it exists as an install.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, so it'll be basically a game launcher on your PC. Basically a game operating, basically what we have on the Steam Deck on your PC.
Yeah. It's just their flavor of Arch Linux that they added, a couple of tweaks, and they added Steam to auto launch, stuff like that, pre-install stuff like that. But they plan to release it just like any other distribution of Linux, where it's out there for everybody to use on whatever hardware, including competing devices. So when they release that, that's when they plan to add the dual booting support. So at that point, I'll wipe the system, now put half for Windows, half for SteamOS. Another reason why is I wanted that anti-glare screen. A lot of reviews have broken down the competition, and they're like, the non anti-glare screen, which you get in the 64 and 256 gig versions, has the false appearance of increased sharpness and brightness, but the colors aren't as clean. I want to say they use the word. I'm paraphrasing heavily, so don't quote me on any of this. But basically the colors and the balance and everything else is better on the anti-glare screen compared to the regular screen. And also the case. I've seen the case that you get on the two cheaper models. On the inside, it just feels cheap compared to the one you get in the 512.
So you actually touched it? I don't know anybody else one.
Yeah, I have a friend in Brooklyn who has one.
Okay.
Shout out to my homeboy Sandrock. He bought the 64 gig. And a lot of people who are buying 64 gigs, like, they have this whole I don't want to insult anybody, but it's a chip on their shoulder, frankly. Like, they're just like, oh, I can open it up and get the SSD myself, and it's all. And yes, you could. But I'm the type, I'm already spending this much. I'm just going to get the model that I need and want off day one, and I have to open it up and replace the SSD and do all this stuff. Just get it the way I need it from day one, because the screws are self-tapping. When they put the system together, that's when they screw in the screws, and the screws are making their own threads. So if you take out the screws and you put them back in the holes, even if you put the same screw back in the same hole, it's gonna re-thread the hole, and it won't be as stable and as solid as it was before. Now, yeah, that's the minor thing, I'm sure, because it was on my friend's system. He had already replaced the SSD by the time I held on to it, but I could feel the difference. It's real slight. It's really not a thing to worry about, but I'm just the type that I'd rather spend that little bit extra to put the responsibility on someone else's back in case anything is messed up with it, right? I just want the experience that I have and have had. I think if I gotten maybe if I got the 256, I would have been right, but not the 64. I've installed so many games I haven't uninstalled a game yet, and I have on Grand Theft Auto 5 and some other bigger games and a couple Call of Duties and stuff, and lots of indie games, Yeah, GTA, I gotta say, listen, man.
I'm saying, how big is it?
It's 100 and something gigs, I want to say.
Ooh, man.
Yeah, let me look on my PC here because my Steam Deck isn't on. I can tell you.
And
Uh,
what size SSD did you put in, or did you put in at all?
no, I just left the stock drive. I haven't even used the SD card yet at all. So I have the 512 as well. Um, I never put an SD card. Hell, my slot could be broken for all I know. I haven't messed with that slot at all. I have no experience with the SD card. Like I said, I haven't had to uninstall anything, because I got the 512. I've been able to install lots and lots of games. So, Grand Theft Auto 5. How big is Grand Theft Auto 5? Grand Theft Auto 5 is.
I guess at least 80.
I want to say it got bigger than that. It's 105.16 gigabytes, at least on my PC. I'm sure it's the same file size. So yeah, 116 and a half, 117 gigs. Yeah, that's like, a fifth of my drive. No, it's more than that even because, after the partition and operating system,
Right.
you lose space. So it's more than a fifth of the drive, close to a quarter of the drive. And I have installed like 28 to 30 games on there and still like another 15 gigabytes left over, for a couple more indies here and there. But yeah, but basically, not to knock anybody who got the cheaper models. Trust me, at a different point
I
in my
heard
life,
those
I
are
would have
easy
did
to
the
get
same
to.
thing. And they're easier to get, it seems. It seems too. So hey, I don't knock it, man. Different strokes for different folks. But so okay, everybody saw, if you saw the live video, that I put up, and it's still right here on this channel if you haven't seen it. But you saw my first impressions, and you could tell I was happy as hell to have my
Giddy.
Steam Deck. Everybody can see how giddy I was. But what was your experience like when you finally opened up that case?
Man, I'm too cool for school, man. So like, I guess FedEx juked me, right? It was supposed to come Saturday morning, and I sat up, man. I put my whole day on hold because I heard, I don't know if that was you who said, yeah, that was you yesterday on Tech Show. You were like, FedEx is super accurate. Not for us.
They are, so, right. Yeah.
Not
I've
for
had
us.
that happen on my Steam Deck as well. I was a day late, I think.
So Saturday was supposed to come, and I sat here all day. Like my kids, my wife, they left. I was here. And then the next thing you know, I got this red exclamation mark telling me, it's been redirected and we'll update you. So it changed probably like 11 o'clock at night. Said it'll be here Sunday. I was like, well, if it didn't make it Saturday, because it hit the office here. So I knew it was here. So it should hit Sunday. So when it came in, I don't know if I know I joke about it a little bit, but I buy crap and I get fussed at. So my wife was supposed to be gone, right? She's supposed to be going to her mother's house with the kids. But that little box was already out there when they came. Oh, what did you buy now? I said, it's just a little nothing. I said, all right. So I played it cool, waited for her to leave. And then I just looked at it, took a picture, put it on Twitter like all the rest of the attention whores. And
yeah, like your fellow attention whores, you had to show them off, right? I know.
Busted open, looked at it, and just started setting it up with a smile on my face like a kid, bro. Like, look, this is probably one of the one device that I've gotten that I've been the most excited about, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like I'll play a Nintendo, but it doesn't really excite me. It's just something I can play games on. But this right here is like, even though I've been emulating since like
the beginning of the emulation. Yeah, back when it was, still an underground thing a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, man, I can do all this. Like, I don't even need the Switch. Like, I can get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
Not
Except
to emulate
the
Switch.
Yeah.
Not to emulate the Switch. You have so much access just there with you at all times. But man, I was excited. Like, I'm sitting around playing with it, waiting for it to update. Sat right next to the router, made sure all the updates went through. Started watching YouTube while I'm playing with it, listening to other people talk about the Steam Deck. It was, man, the only thing I didn't do was make a video like you, and I would look just like you, probably bouncing around, like a little kid, man. Grown ass kid, man. I mean,
bro,
I don't know what it is. Like sometimes like certain games, like when you were a kid, I don't know, like you would ask for a game for like Christmas or your birthday and you get it, and it's like you know it's what you asked for, and it's a strong possibility it's in there. You just can't wait for 12 o'clock to start playing with it.
Hell yeah.
And the first thing I did was just start downloading games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got a few games already, and like some of the games that I guess like Portal. Like I bought it because it was like $2, and I never played it. Download that one first. Then they started suggesting me other games. I think that first day I spent about $200, and man, it was exciting, man. And my wife came home. She said, "Oh, you got a new Switch?" I was like, "Nah, this ain't no Switch." I said, "It's something a little different." She said, "Mm-hmm," walked off.
Yeah.
Then the next thing you know, everything I put in it, everything I start playing, I was like, "Look at this. Switch don't have power like this," because she has a Switch. I mean, everybody in here has a Switch. You know, I asked her, I was like, "Man, how's the Switch still selling?" Then I just took inventory. We got 4 Switches in here.
That's
but
why.
I was like, this is
That's why.
Switch. I was like, if I want, Splatoon is her favorite game. I was like, if I want to, I can play Splatoon with you from this. And it's not even a Nintendo product. Bro, she said, "You're just a big old nerd." Bro, I mean, I still just
so says the girl who's your wife, you know, the mother of your children, playing Splatoon. Okay.
Just saying. It took a while for me. Because like, you know, she never, you know, like, you know, some women that like they don't think, you know, you're supposed to grow out of it, I guess. And
yeah,
she always wanted me to play.
Mindset from a lot of old school people when it comes to video games. Like, you know, it's something we've dealt with all our lives as gamers, but there's still some people out there who still believe the same thing, like it's 1991 or something. Like they're still in that little bag. They just don't get it.
And she always wanted me to play games though. Like I was just working hard. But I would talk about games and I watch YouTube or whatever about video games. I would have my computers. I always kept a computer. It was actually her brother and me. We used to compete probably like every other year. See who can make the best build. See who can run this game the best. Sometimes he won. Sometimes I did. I mean, once I started really just like spending, it was no competition because he wasn't really willing to do that. Because he was getting a lot of stuff for free because he worked for HP.
Oh, nice.
But, yeah, it was right. Real nice, bro. He used to have access to prototypes and everything. But bro, to answer your question simply, bro, I was no different than you. Giddy, excited, like, bro, everything but my palms sweaty. It's like, bro, I'm playing these games, and a lot of these games I already had in the catalog. It's just now,
right.
I can play them whenever. Like, there's really no limit. As long as it says it can run, I'm bringing it.
And that's the thing about it. See, like I've mentioned before, if you look on my Steam account, you know, my profile, it shows, you know, the activity. And a lot of my games is like play for the first time, play for the first time, play for the first time. Like Steam was my forever platform. And it became that because PC, I always noticed that before the original Xbox, you know, I used to experiment with plugging in a PC into a TV. And then, you know, there was TV tuner cards and stuff like that. Basically, I was trying to make a device that was like a DVR, play games, and I could watch movies on in high def, you know, when high def was a new and expensive thing, right? So you have Media Center, and for a long time, I would consider that my life's work, where, you know, I would put all these elements together. And then the last piece was one day, and I'm a fan of pro wrestling. Shout out to Dragonheart Yobi in the chat. Tech knows. Yobi's a wrestling fan as well. And so after Monday Night Raw, there used to be a show on Spike TV, I think it was back then, or whatever the channel was called at that point. And there was a show that used to be called Gamehead, but I think it became GameStop TV or something like that. Long story short, it was hosted by Jeff Keighley himself. And they were like, "Oh, we're announcing right here, right now, Steam Big Picture Mode. And all you have to do is go into Steam and switch your Steam to beta and then check for an update and boom, you'll have it." And Big Picture Mode, if you don't know, was the interface where As long as you had your Xbox controller plugged into your PC, you hit the Xbox button, Steam would launch into like a what they call a 10-foot interface. So basically, it's like the dashboard on your Xbox or your PlayStation. It's a menu that you can use with just your controller to install the games you own, purchase new games, launch your games, all of that stuff that you see in big picture mode. If you go into Steam right now, you plug in an Xbox or a PlayStation controller, and you hit the PlayStation button or the Xbox button, or even if you hit the button, it should be up in the top right of your Steam. It's called big picture mode. In fact, the new version of big picture mode is what they put in the Steam Deck. That's like unofficially big picture mode 3.0 because it had one update, and this is the newest update. So basically, it allowed me to play all my PC games on the PC on the big screen with just my controller, and all I needed was my controller to launch that whole experience. Plus, I had Media Center for my TV and movies and all of that, and it did DVRing and all that. So it was like the one box. And for that, like 2 years, that machine was outdoing any console out there because PC was because the 360 generation was like 5 or 6 years in at that point. So a lot of the games that were multi-plat, already I was buying them on PC because the multiplayer wasn't there, or that wasn't like the main aspect of the game. Like Saints Row 3, I was gifted that game, and I played and beat that game on PC. In fact, I did download on the Steam Deck, and it had my save game and everything, by the way, because of cloud saves. But yeah, that was something that, for me back then, changed the game. So for a long time now, I've been following AMD, and they have CPUs and GPUs. And when you put those together, it's called an APU. That's what they have in the PlayStation. It's what they have in the Xbox. This is what they've been advertising their new APUs now, right? So it's one chip that has the CPU that you need and the graphics chip you need, right? And I've seen these designs out of AMD for a long time. And if you've seen handhelds from INEO and GPD, I'm always looking at the specs of these devices. And they've always been stuck on the Vega graphics. They might get Zen 1 or Zen 2, but it was always stuck on Vega graphics. And I was always waiting for when they would add Zen and RDNA 1 or 2, whichever one, right, into one package. Thank God they skipped RDNA 1. They went straight into RDNA 2, right? And the Steam Deck is the first device to have a chip like that. But as I said before this device was even launched, there will be superior devices by the end of this year from INEO and others. And indeed, we know this to be true. But the main reason I was so happy and giddy when I picked up the Steam Deck for that first time was I knew the potential. The platform it was launching, or more of like a sub-platform. It's just a PC platform. It's just the Steam platform. But for a long time now, I buy my indie games on Steam, especially with Game Pass now. 9 times out of 10, the indie game that I want to play, it's on Game Pass anyway if I want to play it on console. But if I want to archive copy of a game that I bought and own, especially if it's not multiplayer, I'm buying that on Steam, right, to keep. Not Epic Store, not I'll mess with GOG because, DRM free and, everything that they're about. I'm not messing with Epic, although I have a lot of their free games.
Real quick.
Right?
Real quick.
Yes?
Real quick. Why do people care about DRM free?
Because DRM, okay, see, it's the same experience that Xbox users had a couple weeks ago when the servers were acting funny and nobody could access their stuff. This is the eternal fear that with the DRM, especially with the more crazy ones like Denuvo and stuff, not so much the DRM that's in Steam. On the DRM that's in Steam, it's got an offline, it's got offline modes, stuff like that. But Denuvo, that DRM, if not implemented properly, it puts a lag on the game. It puts a stress on the hardware that could be right. It can potentially mess your game up, and it locks you out of your game.
And it was messing up people's computers.
It was messing up people's computers. It's just a whole ball of wax you would rather not want to deal with, right? And Denuvo and its predecessors, like Securom and other things like that, they have a history of just trashing PCs. Basically, a pirate had a better experience with a game than a person who actually sat there and bought the game, right? So, yeah, DRM, when it's annoying, when it keeps you from being able to play your game, is a pain. When it's not, it's fine. Like in Steam, it's got DRM that's built into Steam, but it's not in your way. You know, they have an offline mode, they have this, they have that. It all works out, so you don't have, you know, to even know that there's DRM there. It's just that you can't pirate the game unless you go out online and you find somebody who cracked it for you. You know, but yeah, DRM can be a big problem for games.
Well, because the reason why I'm asking is because I see a lot of people, they keep bringing up GOG like to me it's not a big deal.
That's because we know where to go to get what we need. You know, if it wasn't for the pirates, man, you know, a lot of stuff would have been archived in the first place.
Look, I paused because like, you know, I'm not proud of it. You know, the main reason for me moving, like, all right, for one, you know, they killed my Dreamcast, and from Dreamcast to move to PC. You could play games on like a regular store-bought PC back then, but like Kaza, like I was probably the biggest pirate on the 7 Seas when I first got into PC. And once they started taking away games that I liked, like Madden, 2K, a lot of people started to abandon the platform, or publishers that I was actually, or whose games I was actually playing, and they would all point to piracy. And I was like, man, you know, I never thought that like I was hurting anybody. I just thought it was cool that I can get these free games. You know, I was a broke youngster.
You were young, you were broken, and you know the excuse you probably had in your own mind, because that's the excuse I had, was I couldn't have afforded it anyway. If I didn't pirate it, they still wouldn't have gotten my money because I don't have the money to buy the game.
I didn't rationalize it that way. I was
12 when I rationalized it like that. You know, free game. Well, you know, I was 12. You know, as an adult, you don't think that way, but at least you just wouldn't think about it if you were doing it as an adult. You know, it's like, it is what it is.
But like now, like, because I didn't really get into Steam until they like 2K was so cheap in the store that you can put the CD in and install it, and you didn't have to install it. I mean, you didn't have to use the disc anymore. It was just
because it came with a Steam game anyway. Right, because it came with a Steam anyway. Yeah.
But yeah, that's when I stopped. You know, I got away from pirating at that point. But like now, like ever since I've been buying games on Steam, which has been over the course of years, like first game I ever bought was Oblivion, and I played that for like 3 years with a gang of mods. They had mods for everything. I'm like, man, there's some people that are doing this stuff for free.
Yep.
And man, like I could play one game. I literally played that game for 4 years.
For the love. Yep.
Yeah. They're updating rosters. I played that Vince Young Madden for years because they were updating it. And they weren't bringing it to PC anymore.
Goes back to as far as Tecmo Bowl on the NES. There's a group that mods that game every year to have the new players in it. Every year.
I know they mod 2K5.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And honestly, that really is still the best football game. And I haven't bought a Madden since they've gotten exclusivity. Since that Madden, that 2K that had T.O. on the cover.
You're diehard then. You're diehard.
Well, it's not just that I'm diehard. It's just that it really is the best game. The presentation, the effort. That was when 2K used to care. Game used to be so much different back then. You got a lot more experimental type of games. Now everybody's doing what somebody else did to sell, and so they just try to follow in their footsteps. Like EA got lucky with Apex. Like everybody's got lucky, stealing from PUBG and their whole battle royale.
Fortnite especially.
What we have is a whole pool of battle royale games pretty much doing the same thing in a slightly different way. But yeah, I asked you about the DRM. I mean, because ever since I've been on Steam, I've never had an issue. You don't have to be on the internet. Once you buy the game and it's verified, you have no problems. But I know that like the de novo, like I never bought any game that used that, but I know and I read the issues that people were having with that one. And you're right. People who are buying the game are having a worse experience than the people who are actually pirating the game.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't even know where you would buy pirated. But I remember, like you were talking about Big Picture.
Yes.
Big Picture was Steam's effort to bring a console type of experience
exactly
to the PC.
Yes.
did you I think I asked you before, did you have a Steam Deck? I mean a Steam machine?
No, I did get the Steam Link. I did apply for the Steam Machine thing, but it wasn't until, and I kid you not, 6 months ago, there was a step I didn't do. I've talked to someone, I can't say any information, but I know some people who work very low level at Valve who say they looked at my profile and they were like, had I not made that mistake, I probably would have gotten a Steam Machine.
You had to. I bought it in the store.
No, I'm talking
Like,
about the official ones that they gave away to some people early on.
you wanted one for free. Okay.
Yeah, I almost would have had one of those, but I didn't get one. Like I said, I messed up. There was a thing you had to do in your profile, to be, counted as somebody who's potentially could get one. And I only found out like 6 months ago that was one thing I didn't do in my profile, so I only just did it. But I never had a Steam machine, although I had a friend of mine who built the machine and he downloaded the Steam OS and he ran it on that machine because he was a Linux fan. So he already had a machine. I had built a new machine around that time. He had just built a new PC for gaming, and he's a Linux head, right? So he installed Steam OS on it, and even he didn't like it. I've had experiences with Wine, which is, a predecessor to what Proton is, right? It's a compatibility thing.
They still use Wine.
Yeah, Wine is not an emulator, but basically it's this application suite that allows Windows applications to run on Linux, right? And Proton is like a fork of that. That's mainly for games, and this is why Linux-based operating systems can run these games even though they're not Windows. But it was a whole thing that just didn't work out too well. And then they had the link and they had the controller. The controller is the true shame of that whole situation, I feel. With the gyros, with the Steam input, everything you see in the Steam Deck now, which I guess we should talk about that first. Our experiences with the Steam input thing, because that's kind of nuts. To just break it down for you real quick. Steam has this thing that's called Steam input, right? And it doesn't matter what controller you use. It could be a PlayStation controller, Xbox controller, any of these Nintendo controllers, even third-party controllers like the Power A controllers. It will know them by name, right? And you can configure your controller to work with whatever game you want. And there's profiles that other people have already made that's in the list. And it's all in the big picture interface and everything. This is all interface you control with your controller. You don't need a mouse or keyboard. And you could set up your controls to do so many things. And the Steam controller at the time, had gyro and all these other things. That was the point I was trying to make about a month ago when we were doing that podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about the two things that I think people slept on. One of them was VR. And to prove my point, as soon as I said VR, everybody in the chat lost their minds and completely missed the point I was making and started ranting about why VR wasn't viable, even though that's not why I was bringing it up. So that just proved the point I was making, I guess. But overall, I also mentioned, the DualSense control with the gyros. And because the fact that months after the release of the consoles with the beginning of this generation, Phil Spencer had put out a tweet asking gamers if they would like to see that functionality in an Xbox controller. And everybody's like, oh my God, why would you want that? Because they're thinking about the experience that they're hearing about with the DualSense, with the battery life and the joysticks drifts and the controllers are breaking or whatever, bad things people were saying at the time. Not realizing, hey, well, this is Microsoft doing it. And Microsoft has made great controllers thus far. We should give them a fair shot. And especially now to see it in Steam, with the gyro support, the gyro aiming, there's all types of cool stuff that bridges the gap indeed, especially gyro aiming, right? It bridges the gap between keyboard and mouse and controller, right? On the console. It truly does. It truly does. Look this up on YouTube, folks, because I'm not going to be the one to sit here and advocate for it because I don't have all these facts in my mind. But
you're not the only gyro advocate. You all say the same thing. I tried it. I just can't.
Right, but there's what they call the flick stick, where you use the stick to go left and right, but it's super sensitive, right? It will be super sensitive like a mouse would be. Because a lot of people who are console only, when they're playing games that are crossplay, and let's say they're playing a Call of Duty, right? Now, on keyboard and mouse, it's easy to do a 360 spin and shoot somebody who's chasing you. That's keyboard and mouse 101. But a console gamer who's never seen that before, all of a sudden they see a PC player doing that, the first things out of their minds is, oh, this guy's cheating. I guarantee you, that's not a cheating move. That's PC gaming 101, right? But the flick stick, with this uber sensitivity that it has on, it gives you that. And then to aim vertically, it's just the gyro of the controller. You have to get used to it. There's a learning curve to it, but I truly believe that could be the next paradigm. It could be, if given the opportunity. And with DualSense and all of that stuff, I don't think it ever will. But Steam, just Steam itself, you don't need a Steam Deck to try this. You can try this right now on any PC you want, right? Steam has what they call Steam Input, like I said, with the profiles and everything. And so they had the Steam controller before. They've got this whole thing with Steam Input, and all the potential of the Steam machine that wasn't realized before, you see it in the Steam Deck. If you want to remote play your PC games that are running on your PC with your Steam Deck, you could do that. Install, you could switch into the desktop. It has an app store with all types of apps. OBS is there. Kodi is there, all the apps you might know of on Windows that are free, you're probably going to find them on the store that they have in the Linux app when you get in the desk mode of the Steam Deck. I guess another thing we should talk about next, is like the computing potential, because really this is just a computer that's in a form factor of like a game console, or more specifically the Switch, but it's really just the PC. Like I said in the beginning, you could put Windows on them. But what was your experiences with that side? Have you really messed with the desktop at all to like tweak anything or do certain things?
Yeah, it looks just like my computer did back when I used to run Ubuntu. Right? And it's funny, man. I didn't know that like there was like a strife between like Windows and gaming like that. Like I just played games. I didn't know that like everything was created to get around Windows, to not have to use Windows, and basically in rebellion to Windows. But I mean, my thing is, man, I've got widgets and everything. Like everything is just set up. I got my what is that? My CPU monitoring, my storage monitoring.
Oh, you went even hardcore than I did, and I thought I would have did all that. So I haven't did anything like that.
Yeah, trash can widget. Like I got it's not the best way. It actually looks a little like dingy, like playing in desktop mode.
Right.
You want to be in the normal Steam OS and actually like launch your games if you can, because I noticed like Heroic Launcher works better in desktop.
Right.
But like when you want to like buy games and install games, it's better to do that through the desktop. But you add it to Steam and it works the same. But it won't. At least mine won't. It won't install. It won't make any modifications through the Steam OS, like in game mode. But yeah, I mean that's my experience. I mean I'm still doing things, still exploring. I mean it's been years since I used Linux, man. Linux used to be so like bare back when I used to use it.
Oh yes, man. You wouldn't even have MP3 playback unless you pay for it, because it was still copyrighted and stuff and patent protected, and even MP3 playback wasn't possible. And I'm talking to Linux people back then. Like I knew that same friend that I told you at the beginning who bought the 64 gig version. This is the same dude who's a bit of a Linux enthusiast, right? He's a computer enthusiast like myself, but he had bought a box copy of SUSE Linux, I think it was, right? And because of that, it had MP3 support. And it says so on the box. But if you go to the SUSE website and you download what's basically the same ISO, right, for free, because Linux is free, you can do that, right? It wouldn't have the MP3 playback in it because they couldn't offer that to you. It cost
the best
money.
thing was VLC back then. Like VLC will play anything.
This is before the days of VLC even.
Oh,
that's the thing. This is like 2002, 2003, 2001, something like that, right? So MP3s were still patent protected back then, and you couldn't play them for free. Like, of course, it would work in Windows. You think, oh, but I just ran in Windows. You paid for Windows already. Trust me, you paid for MP3s already in Windows when you paid for Windows when you bought your computer.
But
right?
see, everybody supports Windows, so
Right.
you had no problem. Like
You had
back
no
then,
problem.
Real Player. You know, you
Yes.
brought that up. That's what you were using back then.
Yeah.
But I guess I wasn't using it back when MP3s were copyrighted, but everything had to be done through the command prompt.
Yeah, when Ubuntu came out, I was about 05, 06 or so. Yeah, that's when it was a lot easier back then with VLC, stuff like that.
Yeah, because I didn't use it before that. You know, whatever happened, I feel bad for you guys because I didn't like having to do so much legwork back then. When all I had to do was just install something or run a command to install something. I had to use Wine to do that back then. But yeah, I was never a fan of creating my own operating system back then.
Nope.
And it's gotten a whole lot more streamlined. And you know, yeah, the community wasn't, you know, I wasn't real big on like socializing on the internet. So like there was a whole different aspect or a community out there that I didn't know anything about. And it probably would have made my experience back then a whole lot better.
Yeah, that community is kind of okay. This is what we were talking about offline, I believe, yesterday. And I don't want to say the name of this person because I feel like he blocks people easily. Because I've seen on Twitter where like people will ask him honest questions about his statements. He doesn't answer, he just blocks them instantly, just like that, right? And we know in the game console wars, you know, you see a lot of that. But it's different in that community. So you have a lot of fanatics when it comes to the Linux side as well. They're just, these guys can be kind of nuts, let's say. But my experience with the Steam Deck on the desktop has been very basic. I've never went to a command line except for when I ran EmuDeck, you know, to get the emulators on there, right? But other than that, I've never used a command line. I just went into that store app, you know. I just went through all the apps, you know. I installed OBS and Kodi and VLC and the Edge browser and all types of stuff like that. You know, all the apps that I'm familiar with, right? Because they're all on Windows. I use them on Windows. Okay, it's cool to have them there, right? It was just point and click. If you know how to use Windows, you will easily be able to figure this out. It's not complicated at all. But I haven't messed with that too much. But I did notice something. Like I really haven't really had to mess anything. I've changed my background. Now it's a video with this like wavy, you know, line through it. You know, like neon or something. You know, but other than that, I've noticed that the Steam Deck. Okay, that whole interface it has is console simple. I have never truly had to do anything heavy to get a game to run if it's compatible one way or another, right? If a game doesn't run, like we said in the beginning, you know, there's a lot of games that they mark as not compatible. They are compatible, just run them and they work. But sometimes you have to get the Proton Experimental or whatever, and that's pretty easy to get, right? You just go in the menu and you pick the Proton Experimental provided you've installed that, you went to the desktop mode and you've installed that. That's very simple to do, right? But once you have that and you're in the Steam Deck, you know, operating system with that main interface, it's simple as it gets. If a game runs, it usually runs just fine. You can go in and you can tweak your options in the game. The Steam Deck provides great options to cap the power use. I know, because it's a portable system, you have to be considerate of your battery. So even if you could run a game in 60 frames, maybe you don't want to. Maybe you'll run in 40, which is another option they have now. You could lock the screen to 40 hertz, right? And it'll be smoother than 30, but it's not 60, but it's smoother. But at the same time, it's not using the power as much as if it was using 60 hertz, you know, on the battery. Because the battery life is a thing. If you're not cognizant of it at all times, it can bite you in the ass easily because the battery can drain pretty quickly if you're not up on that. But if you're paying
get an inverter,
you better get yourself a battery or something. Let me tell you.
Well, I haven't yet. Do you have a portable 45 watt
charger or anything? I don't have a battery bank at all. In fact, I was looking to get one. But that's the other thing I was gonna say. As long as you keep in mind the settings for your games, right? The battery life is good enough, because how long are you really going to play that system in one sitting right? If you're at home and you're on your couch or in your easy chair, wherever you like to sit, right? And you play it for about an hour, maybe your battery is half done, right? Well, the charger's right there at the top, and the cable that comes with it is pretty long. Usually if I get to halfway battery, I'm plugging it in and topping it off because I'm still in my easy chair or couch or wherever I am, and I still intend to play for another hour. I'm not trying to kill the battery by the time I'm done. I like there to be a charge afterwards in case I want to, play later or something. But
don't you wish that charger was on the bottom though?
Yes, I do. I wish there was two because I could see the use of having one on top, but I wish they had one on the bottom as well.
What's the use?
See, if there was two of them, right, that would be useful for other things. Maybe you could attach, let's say a camera, right, on top, or USB radio. Or I'm hoping, now I've done no research on this, I'm hoping I can use my Steam Deck outside of gaming as a remote control for a drone, like drone controls. Maybe there's like a USB radio that I'd have to attach to it to get the computer to use it, right? I have no idea. Like I said, I've done no research, but I would love to be able to use my Steam Deck as a drone controller, right?
I mean, it is a USB port.
Yeah, it's a USB port. Like so if they had one on the top, I would love that. And then
it does have one on the
bottom. Right, but if I had one on the top and the bottom, okay, now I can plug in that radio to the top and still have the bottom one, for battery or like if I have USB headphones or whatever else. One port is just not enough. It just isn't. But I give them the pass. It's their first device like this. But the next one better have a port on the bottom.
It can't be too sloppy though, man. You don't want it's a portable gaming device. I mean, yeah, it can do all these other things, but you don't want to have all these USB ports all over the system like
that. Right.
If
so
you want to
have
multiple,
have one at the top, one at the bottom would be the most for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what were you saying?
Nothing. Good. I was just saying that they have the dock. They have the dock if you want to have multiple USB ports. Because I mean, it's like I said, it's a gaming device. You don't want to have so many ports on it, and then it's basically not serving the purpose it was created for. All the stuff you have is cool, and that's what you do. Like when you're a tinkerer, you start seeing like, what exactly can I do with it? Can I do this? Can I do that? And you start playing with a lot of things. But after a while, I mean, it becomes not a gaming console. So I mean, I understand them just having one, and then when you're at home, you got the dock that's coming. I think they said that they added a C and 3 A ports.
3 A's, yeah.
So that'll be when you actually get to like play around with it and treat it like a PC. But there's no way. I mean, it might be cool to just see how far you can push it, but it's not that strong of a device to try to play with it too much.
Nah. Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I said, I didn't do too much in the desktop mode. Like I go in there, I installed a couple apps. There was this one app or whatever I had to get the Proton Experimental on there, and the Proton GE, right? Because there's a couple of games with the video playback is the issue, and this special version of Proton will fix that. Like one of the Mega Man X collections, I think it's the second one, not the first one, right? When you launch the game, the background that you've seen that's all animated, that's the video. And because of whatever the issue is, it doesn't work right unless you use a special version of Proton, and then it plays the video properly and everything looks proper. So besides that, like I said, I go into that Steam Deck interface, and I'm telling you, if you knew nothing about computers and you never had a computer, you didn't have a Steam account before this, and you didn't really own a lot of games on Steam, maybe somebody gifted you 2 games and they gifted you a Steam Deck, right? Wow, number one, you got a good friend to be gifted a Steam Deck, by the way. But saying, like, if you had no knowledge, you were given a Steam Deck and you have an account now with 2 games on it, right? You can go on that system, purchase games, it's on your account, download it there. If you have a PC, install Steam there, install those games there. You could remote play where they're really running on the PC and you're playing them on the Steam Deck. I've done that a couple of times. There's a couple of games that it's ironically I have them installed both on the system and without to do the comparison I did. Like Saints Row 3. I'd beaten that game way when it was new on PC, but I downloaded Steam Deck and then I launched. Oh my save game is there at the very end after I done beat the game. I don't know what to do, but hey, it runs real good. Okay, that's cool. Okay, now I have it installed on my PC now to remote play and see, hey, it works great there too. And now, oh, cool, I have that option, But other than that, if you've never done anything like that, you could really use the Steam Deck. It's not confusing at all. It's as console simple as the Xbox, PlayStation, or Switch. It's really no more complicated than that. All the menus I feel are in good places. The store, I feel they need to update the store on the Steam Deck itself because it's hard to navigate it, right? When you move around the controls, now they've done a lot of updates. I've had it from day one. My experience day one and your experience day one are night and day. Like you joked earlier, you called me a bit of a beta tester. Yeah, you called me a bit of a beta tester. And indeed I was. But even before then, we were hearing reports from Linus Tech Tips and the Fox and other folks like that who got theirs early. And they kept saying they were getting updates like multiple times a day. They'll get updates every day. And at the early point, that first like week or two, I was getting updates like every day, every other day. Once in a blue moon, multiple times in a day, and they're truly listening. When people are saying, oh, we don't like this, you should do that, the next day you'll see an update that does exactly that.
Yep.
Or if Valve puts out an update, they put out an update where they moved the controls for vibration or something, I think it was. And the community was like, no, we don't like that, put it back. So what they do, next update, it's right back to where it used to be. Because that's where it should be, in my opinion, as well, and that's what they did. They're really listening, and overall, where it is now, in terms of operating system, in terms of like just that interface you need to be able to install, purchase, and launch your games, it's already there now, and now they're starting to add on all this gravy to it. You got the thing where you could lock it to 40 hertz. You could turn down the TDP, which was already there, but they've given you even more control than we had before. When you have a lot of games and profiles per game, profiles, even if it's not a Steam game, because when they first had that update, it was just for Steam games. But if you had a game from GOG or something, it would only use the one profile for everything else, right? Now each one of those has their own profile. It has a lot of features now that wasn't there day one, but now that they're there, it's just like, how did you ever live without them? And for all those people who are waiting to get their Steam Deck, I promise you, your Steam Deck will be so capable and powerful by the time you get yours, compared to the way it was when I first had it, or even now. I promise you, because they keep doing these updates. They show who they really are. It's a lot like, why we like Xbox, they keep listening to us, even though they might make mistakes, right? Valve is doing the same thing with the Steam Deck. It's pretty clear. Even when there's, more powerful devices like the Iron Neos that are coming out in the future that will have more powerful hardware and even the same operating system, SteamOS will be able to run on those devices. Even when that happens, the price that those devices won't be able to match the Steam Deck, because Valve is taking a massive loss. I don't even know if they're breaking even. I believe they're breaking even. It's like they're not
break even on the
off.
512s.
Yeah, they break even on the 512s.
The others are at a loss.
Oh, so the others are at a loss even. Okay, well, it just goes to the point I was trying to make. It's just like it's expanding the platform. It's opening the market. They're not planning to make any money on the hardware. It's off the games, right?
That's the way it was always supposed to be. The only one who actually makes money on their hardware is Nintendo, as far as consoles go.
That's right. So
and
it's
why?
just like
They use old hardware, so they're able to get it for cheaper and sell it. But their games don't require, the latest and greatest.
Not anymore, and it doesn't. That's for sure. But the emulation thing, like you keep asking me, we were asking me in the past, had I messed with emulators, did I put on EmuDeck and all that? And I only really did that recently. And that's because, and it's a great emulation device, and that's one of the primary reasons I bought it. Make no mistake, right? Outstanding emulation device. But that was pretty much expected. by myself and everyone. Once you saw the specs, and there are cheap devices out there for years now that are handheld devices you can get from Amazon right now, from AliExpress or whatever, right? That are dirt cheap, that perform really well with these class, 8, 16-bit, 32-bit, as far as Dreamcast and even on, right? You can play Wii U, even Switch games, right?
Everything up to this Wii U.
Yeah, everything up to the Wii U and the Switch emulation and a little bit of PS3, even though that's not too good on this level of hardware. Plus that emulator still needs a lot of work, so there's that. But in terms of emulation, it's everything that I imagined it would have been without me having tried it. Like, it's not that I feel like I wasted my time trying or anything. It's just that I already knew it was going to perform as well as it does. And so I didn't need to prove that to myself. It was just like obvious, I've played Saturn, I played Nintendo, I played Atari, I played Commodore 64, I played PlayStation, I played Dreamcast, I played Super Mario World in widescreen, okay? 16 by 10, because the screen on this is 16 by 10, even though they have a 16 by 9 version, or even a ultra widescreen version. It was a mod that came out like last year, the year before, of Super Mario World, right? Now that was something I tested on this hardware. And it was great as if it wasn't widescreen, it's just, it's widescreen, so there's that appeal. But in terms of emulation, that's a foregone conclusion that it was going to be great, and it's as great as you could imagine, because you've got this handheld, and particularly with emulators, like the battery life is incredible when you're running emulators, right?
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
The battery life is ridiculous. Like, you're hearing about when you're playing these bigger games, like if you play Grand Theft Auto, you last maybe 2 or 3 hours, right? But if you're playing, a Switch game, you can get 6 to 8 hours, If you're playing some Nintendo game, you'll get 15 hours maybe, depending on your bright. The Switch, you'll get, that's why I said 4 to 6 instead of 6 to 8, right?
Well, no, like the Switch is more intensive than the other ones. Like I don't really mess with the Switch.
It is. But I've gotten about 4 to 5 hours, as much as 6 hours. I was playing not Breath of the Wild, I was playing Mario Kart. The GameCube version of Mario Kart, and then I played the Switch version of that to compare. Actually, it wasn't GameCube, it was Wii, but then they re-released it on the Switch. I think Wii U, and then they re-released it on Switch. So I played both versions of that.
Every generation.
Yeah, but especially with the Switch, like most of its games, especially early on, were just re-releases of Wii games. Not Wii games, of Wii U games that didn't get their time to shine, and they got their time to shine on the Switch. But yeah, I tried out a lot of those games. But like, if I play the NES game, right, now the battery life is like 8 to 10. It depends on what you're doing, and it affects the battery life accordingly. So emulation is just, it's fantastic. But like, and it sounds like I'm downplaying it or something, but it's just what I expected, and it's exactly that. It's just a great handheld system for emulation. If you're purchasing it for emulation alone, at that point, I would highly suggest you get the cheapest model, right? Because then it starts to affect like the cost of value proposition there. But if you just want it for emulation, this is one of the best emulation devices out there, bar none, because of what you get, the potential as a platform for the future. What it can't do now that it will be able to do in the future is just ridiculous, I feel.
No, I mainly got it to play my games on the go, right? But the fact that, like, I don't know about you, but I've got some games like back from Nintendo that like I just couldn't leave my console on for days. And with these emulators, you can save, you can load a save state, and you can go back to them, like Guardian Legend. Like, dude, that was a game that I could never beat.
Shoot 'em up, yeah,
that was a game I could never beat because they had a like a 26 character password with 3 different versions of every letter. Like one E had 1 dot over it, the other E had 2 dots over it. But that was the way they had to save it.
Even if you wrote it down,
you can mess up.
Down exactly, you can mess up, right? Okay.
Yeah, and you end up starting over unless you left the console over. So, and there's another game, Dragon Spirit, I need to beat. So it's just access to more games. I mean, I never had a PSP, so some of those games, if I can't buy them, I'm going to emulate them. You know what I mean? Like Persona, those games, I got into it because PS5 gave it away, and everybody says the other ones are so great. So I went ahead and got those so I can play those. It's just access to more games. I didn't get it just to emulate. I mean, emulate really is secondary because there are a
Yes.
lot of games that I buy on sale or have been buying over the years. I just buy them because they're cheap, but
Yeah, the
they're
Steam
perfect. They're
crackhead
perfect
sales, as
for
I always reference them as. Yeah,
they're
dirt cheap
perfect for the
games.
Steam Deck.
Hmm.
So that's what I'm doing with it. You know, I want to be able to play games. You know, I'm not really into a whole lot of music these days. I'm not really. It's kind of hard to get into movies unless I'm off or a TV show. So I
Mm.
can pop in a game that I'm familiar with and just jump on, be it old or new. But
Yeah.
you brought up like the Iron Neo, right?
Hmm.
So you know those are what like 1,200 up to 1,500.
Yeah,
Uh,
but cheaper as well. But yeah, they have many different models, but they're, yeah, a lot more
but what I'm,
expensive than a Steam Deck.
what,
That's for
what I'm
sure.
gonna ask is like, so do you favor like using the Steam OS over Windows? Is you using Windows with a Steam launcher?
Okay, here's the thing about it. I keep giving lots of props to the SteamOS launcher because it's just so well done, right? And you really don't even ever have to go into the desktop mode if you're just a gamer. Um, but if you're a gamer, the only reason you might want to go into the desktop mode is to install the Proton Experimental, right? Once you have that on, you probably would never have to go into desktop mode ever again because it's just that console simple, right? But SteamOS is great. And then you sing a lot of these reviewers, who reviewed these handhelds long before the Steam Deck was around, when all these devices were running Windows, and they never complained about Windows at the time, right? But now the Steam Deck is out, and they're like, Windows OS is a horrible OS for gaming on these little handhelds in comparison to the Steam OS. And they're right, but they're being disingenuous, and particularly the Linux community who loves, to hang their
I
hat on
mean,
this.
that's the Linux community.
Right, but
That's what.
Linus, Tech Tips and others are saying that as well, and it's because here's the secret: Steam on the Steam Deck, even if you're in the desktop mode, is doing stuff in the background, like it's using your control. Like if you was to go into the desktop mode and you was to exit Steam from the tray or whatever, if you would like to close the app, all of a sudden the controls don't act the way they did before when Steam was running. Like you can't use the touch pads as the mouse and the triggers as clickers, right? If Steam isn't running, because it's doing certain things in the background to manage certain things, right? Steam on Windows doesn't have that. Even the Steam OS, interface, which will come to Windows and every other platform that runs Steam in the future, right? When they update the Steam OS, when it's finally released, I imagine that will be when they do that, right? But Steam on Windows doesn't have these features. And Valve could add these features, right? To make Steam on Windows have more, what's the word there? Parity, right? But they don't. And they market the fact that it works so well on Linux. But that's because they put in that extra work so all the fit and finish happens in the background, and it's enabled by Steam itself. Once you kill that app, all of a sudden the desktop mode on the Steam Deck is a lot more complicated to deal with unless you already have a mouse and keyboard already linked into it, So SteamOS is easier to use. It's great for people who have no experience in any of this stuff. And in fact, it might become a thing where people who have no experience, they'll purchase or build a new PC, and SteamOS will be an option. If they only plan to use that PC to play games, they can install that operating system, and everything they need will be there without the complexity. All the complexity is in the background. If you want to access it because you know what you're doing, then fine. But if you don't, you won't have to. And it's the same way with the Steam Deck. It's like Windows isn't as easy to use as the Steam OS, but that's because the Steam OS is handling all the complexities for you on Steam OS, but they're not doing it in Windows. You catch what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because see, my thing is like, all right, when you get Linux OS. It's pretty lightweight, and like ever since people started just like create or developing for Linux specifically, it always got better performance than Windows. Windows is doing so many other operations besides just gaming. And I don't know if you ever used like the Pocket PC back in the day, it was just like a stripped down Windows, and that's all they're
Yeah,
doing. Like with the mobile Windows, it's not a gaming optimized operating system, and that's where
yeah,
Steam right now has the leg up. My issue with like having a Steam Deck, like yeah, I buy Steam games, but I'm also a Game Pass subscriber, and I'm not buying all of these games and streaming. It doesn't matter how good the internet connection is, it's still juddery, right? It still jumps around. It's
hmm,
still not right. They're still optimizing, and everything that I've read or learned about like the contentious relationship they have, they're not itching to implement Windows on their device, right? Because back when they had the Steam machine, nobody wanted to use Linux, right? And then they
no,
started selling Windows models, and that's
yeah,
what they don't want, right? They want
right.
you to use theirs. They want you to be in their little system. So that's something they're gonna have to work out. But for me, that's my only issue, and why I would prefer to have Windows, because I can get big picture and all this stuff on my PC. It works just fine.
Yeah,
Works the same as this Steam Deck. But the thing with the computer is it's more powerful to do whatever it needs to do. Plus the other operations that it has to do perform in the background through Windows.
yep,
So it's not that big of a deal for me. And like you brought up VR earlier, right?
hmm,
Because you can only use like the Oculus through big picture mode, right? And it's cool, as long as I can play my games. So my issue is just that I can't have access to my Windows games without paying for them.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they don't seem to be like they're doing little things, but I don't ever see them having I guess, a seamless, adequate version of Windows because that's not what they want. I mean, if they wanted it, I'm sure that they could work together, but that's not what they want.
That's not what they want. Yeah. Well, yesterday Microsoft, and, and in fact, I think I put up a link about this. It was the new version of the Game Bar, right? That they're working on. And in fact, if you're Windows Inside on Windows 11, supposedly you can access this right now or soon to be. I forget which, but basically it adds a bit more of that functionality there. If you press the Xbox button, it's supposed to bring up that bar, or you can press Windows and G, and then it'll have all your Xbox Live chat and all that stuff is there. You can launch games, stuff like that. But it's nowhere in comparison to Steam. But yes, that's what you say. You have that power and that flexibility of Windows, and SteamOS is running these games through Proton. It's a compatibility layer because it's not Windows. These games are all Windows games. Well, 90% of them. There's a couple of games out there where they actually have Linux versions, like the Metro series, Streets of Rage Part 4. It is a Linux game. It's natively Linux. It's not Proton. There's a couple of games there, here and there, that are natively Linux, and you're running the actual Linux version. But 99% of the time, it's a Windows game. And if Proton can't get the game to run, even if your hardware is capable of running a game, it's not going to run. No, you're not going to have that problem in Windows. If a game can run in Windows and your hardware is capable of running it, it will run. Compatibility is not going to be an issue with Windows. This is why I've always wanted to do, long before I even had paid for this device. I've always wanted that. But a lot of people are trying to downplay the concept of installing Windows on it, right?
It's
And then they
bad,
try
bro.
to compare, oh, Windows to Linux. But as I explained, SteamOS is doing extra things that they're not doing on the Windows side, that the Steam app itself is doing for itself to help itself out, right? But meanwhile, on the Windows side, it's not doing that at all. And here's a great example of the same thing that they did in the past. Okay, like you said, you didn't know that Valve and Microsoft were beefing way back when. So I'm gonna give you a perfect example of how Valve was disingenuous with the same concept. Okay, you might remember the orange box, right? You know what? Half-Life 2 with all
Great
the
on deck.
expansions and Portal, and it's great on deck indeed, right?
Great on
But
deck.
when it came out to the
Green check.
360, absolutely, it's their own games. You expect that, now wouldn't you, right?
Yep.
And it's a textbook example of support too. Like everything works. All the features of the Steam Deck works on their own games. But back with the orange box, the Xbox version back then was the best because EA was the ones who ported the version on PS3. Now, years later after that, now Valve was trying their whole thing with the Steam machines, right? And now they're trying to go towards Linux and OpenGL and not using DirectX, and they try to compare, OpenGL to DirectX. And what they did was they said, hey, look, this PlayStation version now is running better than the Xbox version of Portal 2, right? And then if you notice, performance of the Xbox version was the same level of performance that they had with the orange box years earlier. And that's when I realized they're comparing a years old version of the source engine of that time that they're running Portal 2 on the 360 on, compared to the more recent, up-to-date, hand-coded, updated version by Valve of Portal 2. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
And they tried to be like OpenGL performed a lot better than DirectX. But yeah, that DirectX version you're using is but old compared to your recent and fresh OpenGL version, and it was disingenuous even then. And that's the same thing I see happening now when they're gonna start saying, well, SteamOS runs a lot better than Windows. That's because Steam is helping itself out on Linux, but it's not doing the same thing on Windows when it comes to like controls and stuff like that. And
now, what Valve doesn't
I don't think that's really fair.
Yeah, but what Valve doesn't need to do is antagonize a $1 trillion company, right?
Exactly.
Because it seems like now Microsoft is willing to partner with everybody they can to do things that they don't need to do, right?
Mhm.
Why not partner up with Valve and let them run your games on their handheld? You sell the software, you don't need to be in the hardware business. But if they keep doing these types of things, then Microsoft could partner up with one of these other, so far about 4 other ones that are doing these handheld PCs that are, I put a tweet up, nobody cared, right? That they have already, I think the INEO is getting ready to come out with a new one this year.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be another one. I can't remember the other one.
I predicted that before they announced it, that they would have one that was as fast or faster than the Steam Deck. And that's just because that's technology for you. That's the way it always progresses.
That's how technology works. They're already talking about a 4000 series and people can't get a hold of 3000.
That's right.
So with NVIDIA. So I think that they should work together because it could be a whole lot easier. And who wants to buy 15 different devices? I mean, I will, I just don't want to.
Right.
If Microsoft actually took it serious and started to do the things and created interfaces for these handheld consoles, because like I said, right now they're just stripped down versions of Windows that can get the job done. But if they started to do the things that Valve can do, I don't have any doubt that they could compete in that way. I think that they would rather partner with Valve, and I hope that they do. I hope that Valve is, I know what they're doing. They don't want people outside of their system. They put all this work in, they created their console, and they didn't create it in partnership with Microsoft. So cool. But they need to do a little bit better with what they got going on. Because I don't want to stream these games. They need to work out some kind of partnership. And I don't need Windows. Just let me have my Windows games.
I completely agree because it's hypocritical of them. Because back when they claimed that Microsoft was doing it to them, right? And they were like, but Microsoft is doing this and that. Okay, now the shoe is on the other foot and you're doing the same thing. And that to me is worse because you know what it's like. It's like if, you had an ex who cheated on you, okay? Now the next person you go and date, you cheat on them. You know what it's like to be cheated on, right? Why would you do that to someone else? And it's the same thing with I know a lot of these things in the tech industry. They'll love to say, when Apple took out the headphone jack, Samsung was right there with those ads for a couple of months. We have the headphone jack. Why would we do that? Blah blah blah. It didn't even take a year, and all of a sudden Samsung had devices out there without headphone jacks because Apple did.
It took them two, and then it took them about 3 to jump on the no SD card slot.
Yep.
But what they found out is that people really didn't care.
Yeah, people really didn't care. Right. And it's just the hypocrisy of it, because we know why Apple did it. Samsung did it
those earbuds.
Because right, to sell those earbuds. Everybody knows that. Why did Samsung and others do it?
Just same reason.
Because Apple was doing it. Because Samsung already has headphones and stuff. It was not like they needed it to force themselves to sell these headsets that they have.
No, they bought AKG, and they started creating those their beans and those other types of earbuds that they had. Google the same thing, and then Google came up with the Pixel Buds. Everybody,
that's right.
I mean, Apple showed them the way. I mean, it was a good hustle.
Yeah, it's just the hypocrisy of it, because Valve and Satya, when they were extra heavy with Linux, when Microsoft was the bad guy, was Windows 8 with their App Store and all that drama from back then, right? Valve was trying to capitalize off of that, talking all this mess. Okay, now it's their turn. They're in the front seat with their situation now, and then and what's their playbook? The same playbook that Microsoft was using against them, that they sat there and preached to everybody saying, "Oh, this is so wrong," but now they're doing the same thing. That makes them no better, in my mind. So, it's just more of a motivation when. As soon as I'm able to put Windows on there with a dual boot, I'm definitely doing that, because Windows 11,
even if it's
low
jank?
key, it's not jank at all. It's not jank. It's getting less and less jank with every update. It's the same thing that happened in Windows 10. Frankly, it's the same thing that happens to every version of Windows. Every new version of Windows, there's always like a year or so where everybody's like, it's the spawn of Satan. It doesn't do all these 1,000,001 things, and then when that version of Windows is about to be replaced by the next one, all of a sudden, that's the version of Windows that's so beloved. It wasn't that long ago when Windows 10 was the new one, right? And everybody hated it. But now that Windows 11 is out, now Windows 10 is the one that's so beloved.
People hate it.
Windows 11 is seen as the elite.
I know we all hate Vista. I didn't know that 10 was an issue.
Hey man, it happens every time there's a new version of Windows. It happens every time. It used to be a good one, bad one, good one, bad one. A type of pattern. You had Windows 98, and then you had ME. ME was a flop, right? And you had XP. XP was great. And then you came Vista. Vista was a flop, and it was 7. 7 was great. Then 8 was a flop, and then 10 was supposed to be quote unquote the good one.
Right.
But now people are complaining about 11, but they kind of like off, and like the pattern is still off, But long story short, like, people like to complain because it's new and different, and it takes a little while, for Microsoft or what have you, to sit there and tweak it and get it right. And Windows 11 finally is at that point. And like I said, they're just updating the game bar and other gaming related features. They got the HDR working a lot better, all types of sounds situations that they had issues with. The same DTS and Adobe plugins. If you bought them for your Xbox, it already works on your Windows install. You don't even have to rebuy it or anything. You already have the license to use it in Windows. It's already there. I want Dolby Atmos, with some good headphones, when I'm playing the Steam Deck, if I'm on a plane or something, I want that Dolby Atmos. I can't get that in Linux, no matter what Valve does, unless they pay, for that development to happen so Linux can have it. It's not going to have it. These are things that Windows will always have that Linux won't. And so that's another reason I feel like that they need to get that working. And thankfully, they put the drivers out there. You were just waiting for the operating system to do the dual boot, because you can put Windows on it right now. Nothing is blocking you. It's just that Windows is going to take up that whole SSD, or you're going to have to do the manual work of getting the dual boot to work. And as much as a computer enthusiast as I am, I'm not going to sit there and try to figure that out. I'd rather it be automated. It's the same reason, like I said, why I bought the 512. I didn't want to have to sit there, purchase the SSD, and have to open it and take it apart and do all those things. I just rather be there instead of sitting there and tweaking. It's just like you said, realist. In the end, there's all this complexity and advancement and all this stuff that I could be doing on my Steam Deck, but bro, all I do is I just launch that interface and I play games. Once in a blue moon, I go into desktop mode to experiment with stuff. But it sounds like you've experimented more with the desktop than even me. 9 times out of 10, I'm just playing games. That's it. If I go into desktop mode, that's just to update those little apps, like the browsers and stuff, because that's how those apps get updated. You have to go into that desktop mode to go in that Discover app, that Store app, to have it check if there's updates and to make those updates happen. So once in a blue moon, I'll go in there. But one last question I have for you before this ends. I just wanted to ask you, what is the one pet peeve? Now, I want you to think about this, because it might be the same one I have, because this has been a thing with Steam for a while now, actually, I've noticed, right? What's your biggest pet peeve with the Steam Deck?
Well, the Steam Deck itself, I guess I would have to say the biggest. I don't need those trackpads. I mean, they unless they're gonna keep updating them, because I really can't stand my directional pad being right on the side of my left analog stick like that. I mean,
okay,
if it's a game like old school game, I'm running an emulator where you don't need it, it's perfect, right? But the way it's situated, I can it's doable, but I would prefer that it be where the trackpad is. But if you're talking about like the OS, I mean, dude, I have probably equal praise for the actual Steam OS itself. And that's why I think that like they should just keep it gaming, right? Don't try to do anything extra with it. Try to strike these partnerships. Keep streamlining it for gaming, because I have zero complaints about the OS in gaming mode, right? I wouldn't launch anything from the desktop, right? The only time I go to the desktop right now is for Hero. That's it. Heroic Launcher for my Epic games. And I got a question real quick before you jump on it. Like, so are you one of those people that boycotted Epic?
Yeah, generally I don't buy anything from Epic, but I get their free games. But I messed up one time. Crisis Remastered. I think they had it on sale for like $10, right? So I broke down and I bought it. Then like a week and a half later, they put it on Steam for like the same price or something. I'm like, God damn it! Right?
I noticed that they've been alternating.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to buy Death Stranding. Not Death Stranding. I bought that crap. The zombie game. Because 2K and Sony are like tied up with Epic. So like, because like Tiny Tina's still not on Steam. But like their Sony games go on sale more frequently with Epic. The Days Gone, that's the game I'm thinking about. I want to buy that game.
I want to buy Sifu, on PC, but it's on the Epic store, so I don't buy it.
But you can use Heroic and play it. That's what I.
No, but it's but I have to give the money. See, Epic gets a piece of my money, and maybe you're not familiar with the whole thing, and I'm definitely not the one to sit there and break it down right now, right? Yeah. But Epic is basically up to shenanigans when it comes to this, PC apps, to buy on PC games. They're basically doing, the same thing that PlayStation does in the console arena, right? But they're doing it to Valve and to Microsoft and to everybody else. But at the same time, they're sitting around there and they're whining about what Apple is doing, like they're the victims, right? Okay, maybe when they're dealing with Apple, they are. That's absolutely true. But when it comes to the PC space, it's very different. And so they're trying to use that situation with Apple, which I could agree with them on, and I do, right? Because Apple is up to absolute no good over there. We know that. But they're trying to parlay the goodwill into saying that, the same thing is happening with them there, and this is why the 30% and blah, blah, blah. It's just a targeted attack to Steam, because Valve has bent over backwards for a while now to appease developers, gamers, and everything else. Epic is doing what Sony does. They're right. They had to, but Epic is trying to purchase their way into relevance, and it's just not working for them. Yet and still,
Well,
they've wasted tons of
it
money.
will because they're gonna continue. They have the money, and see, I'm an underdog guy, right? So I root for Steam. If you look at Steam worth about 10
Yeah,
billion going up
yeah,
against 400 billion because Epic
yeah.
is 40 something percent
That's right.
Tencent. And Epic is really just the name, but Tencent's the ones pulling the strings. Now
Yep.
I don't have an issue
That's
with
another
them.
reason. That's another
And I
reason. Yeah, for me.
and I think that they can coexist. And that's also why I don't, because if you notice when it came to Apple, everybody was with Steam, right? Even Microsoft, because
Mm-hmm.
that's their biggest rival. And they know that Apple is only where it is because of their ecosystem, and people are buying these apps, and they're getting 30% of everything. So Microsoft sided with Epic. Everybody pretty much sided with Epic. But at the end of the day, they got their monopoly, if that's what you want to call it. They got it honest, kind of like Microsoft. They got theirs honest, right? They were the best on the market. It's not like
That's
they
right.
cut people's throats. But
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with Epic, man. But I will go to Steam first. I've always been with Steam, but I'm gonna go with who's gonna save me the most money.
Yeah, no doubt, because they're putting out those free games, and I get them.
Bro,
From the other day,
Borderlands
they put
3
out
was free today,
Borderlands
bro.
3. Yeah, I picked. It was been free for a couple of days. I stay up on that. I get the free games. I got Control, and I only have it on Epic, right? Because of that, I get their free games. And Crisis, I broke down. I bought Crisis Remastered, even though I told everybody on podcasts and everything I would never do it, but it was $10, and then of course, like a week and a half later, it was on the platform I really wanted in the first place. But there you go, it was there. So, but GOG. But to answer your question, actually, it was my question. But to respond what you said about the trackpads, okay, that wasn't the thing I was thinking about. But to address that, let's say, the touchpads, they definitely haven't shown or proven their worth at all, frankly, to me. Like, there's potential. There's a lot of potential. None of it has been realized, unfortunately.
And that's why I said if they keep updating and updating the usage, because right now they're jank.
Yeah, it's completely nigh on useless to me. Maybe if I played like Missile Command. In fact, there's a Missile Command game on Steam that's like $2.99. I got to remember to pick that up because I want to try that with the trackpad. Because if that doesn't work well with the trackpad for me, I'm going to be like, F the trackpads at that point, right? Because right now I'm neutral with the trackpads. Like, I've never really used them too often, except when I very first was going to desktop mode because I didn't have a Bluetooth mouse. And then I happened to find one in a box that I owned the whole time and never used. But before that, I was using the trackpads, and those things were kind of annoying. And they did a couple of things, got slightly better. But generally, the trackpads, in terms of gameplay, I really haven't used them for games or anything. They just really haven't been useful at all. And so I'm giving it this one last shot with this Missile Command game. But otherwise, I'm going to be like, I see what y'all try to do, but you did nothing with it. So I'm hoping the updates come in the future to really bring it there. But the issue that I've been having is, and I see this expressed, ironically, especially with Grand Theft Auto 5, right? And what happens is, if you shut down your Steam Deck, let's say you have a bunch of games installed, right? I have like close to 30 games installed. I think like 28 or so, right? So when I shut down the Steam Deck, you power it off, or you just press the power button and it goes into that sleep mode where basically the battery is off for real, right? Because it does have that sleep mode where you can sleep in any game, any emulator, anything, right? You just hit the power button, it goes to sleep, and when you hit the power button, it will be right back where you left it, no matter what the app is, if an emulator or whatever, right? It's rare that nothing is not compatible with that. But anyway, the Steam Deck, usually, if I'm finished with a game, I'll exit the game and I'll go to the dashboard. So what I do is, I hit the power button. It has the, just like the logo at the beginning of the pocket, it'll have that, but it's kind of reversed, and then you see like the eye blinks and it goes to sleep, right? And the system turns off. And then when you turn the system back on, the first thing you notice, if you're looking up at the top, where the Wi-Fi logo is, right where the download icon is, you'll notice it's downloading a bunch of little, I don't know what the hell it's downloading, right? And it'll be like a third of your games, all have to get like a tiny update of like a couple of kilobytes, and sometimes it's a couple of megabytes, or sometimes what it seems to be is it's like it already has the file already, and it has to sit there and check, right? But for Grand Theft Auto, it has to sit there and download like 650 megabytes, and then it has to do some kind of Vulkan shader thing, right? And it does it every time. And if you shut down the system and reboot, or if you go into desktop mode, because sometimes it will be stuck. If you go into desktop mode, it'll happen a lot faster, right? And then you exit desktop mode, you go back into the game mode, and it's all done and it's all good, right? And then you can shut down the machine and it'll be fine. But if you shut it down and it's fine, and like 15 minutes later you check, it's fine. But if you leave it for hours and you come back, it has to sit there and download this stuff all over again. And for most games, it's a couple of seconds. But for Grand Theft Auto, it has to sit there and download, first of all, 650 megabytes, and then it has to sit there and like process the shader cache or something it's doing like every freaking time. Every time. And it has to be some kind of glitch because it's the same 650 megabytes, and there's no new patch for Grand Theft Auto.
Sure?
I've been checking. And it's just like it's some kind of glitch. It just sits there and it will like re-download something, and then after the downloads are good, it's fine and you can do whatever you want. And then you can shut down the system, and then 15 minutes later you turn it back on. It doesn't have to download anything. But if you leave it off for a while and then come back within the same day, it starts all over again with the downloads. And I have no idea what that is. But other than that, that's my only real complaint because it's perplexing.
And so that bothers you because you don't know why it's happening.
I don't know why it's happening, but sometimes it has to sit there and download something. And I want to play Grand Theft Auto, but it wants to sit there and download. Like I said, it's a quarter of my drive space. I just want to play, but it's a quarter of my drive space. I'd rather, uninstall the game than have to sit there and not be able to play the game every time I want to play the game because I have to wait 5 minutes to even launch the game because it's sitting there downloading something all over again.
That's what I was saying. Like, you want to play just that, right? And you said you had 29 games, so I'm looking at it. I have 61, and like whenever I turn mine on, I have the same thing, but I don't play GTA, so I'll have like 6 or 7 updates, and they'll be like 2 megabits.
Yeah, they're real small. It's only Grand Theft Auto that big down. Everything else is tiny.
That big.
Yeah,
because some of them, I don't know why. I have that same issue. It's like 800 with is that Death's Door? It's either Death's Door. Yeah, Death's Door. It's always got an 800 or no, Disco Elysium. There's an 800 megabyte file it always needs to download, but the rest of them are like 6.2. They're over and like back to back. But that Disco Elysium, did it do it today? It's done it for the past 3 days. I didn't pay attention today because a couple of my games I wanted went on sale, and that was my first order of business when I booted up today.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Steam's the crackhead sales, man. Yeah.
Bro,
yeah.
It's dude, like this.
It's weird though.
This is probably gonna be my main driver for a while, man. Like I said, I really wish. Like I know, like Steam achievements are cool and all that, and I don't know how much time you got left, but like Steam achievements are cool. But I want those Xbox achievements. I want those games that are in Game Pass, and I don't want to stream them on a permanent basis. So I hope that they can, because honestly, like I told y'all yesterday, it is taken away from sales, and I don't see any incentive for Gaben to have the Game Pass where you can install these games on his console like that. I don't
unless he's getting a piece of that money from
and Microsoft, and that's why Microsoft is on Epic's side, because they don't want to have to give Apple, because Apple wants to get paid in perpetuity.
Right.
Netflix is not as big as Apple, so they just went ahead and just bent over and took it. But Microsoft is like, nah, we'll just find a workaround before we pay you 30% every month of $10.
Yeah. And here's the functional issue for us as a consumer, right? Okay. I'm on Game Pass. I'm not going to purchase Halo because I already have it on Game Pass, right? If I purchase Halo, which I do, unless it's $5, right? Which it almost never is, right? But yeah, if it's something dirt cheap like $5, I'll pay the $5 tax basically to just get the problem out the way. But the problem is, like, okay, I buy all the Halos on Xbox because I want to have the disc. Even Halo Infinite, where there's literally nothing on the disc, right? I never even put anything into my drive until Halo Infinite. And I had preloaded the game, and the only reason I popped in the disc was to test if my drive would work, right? I popped in the disc, and because I already had preloaded the game, you know, it launched the game, right? So I'm like, okay, my drive works, except I already knew from beforehand that the disc was empty. Put the disc away. I'm not going to purchase Halo Infinite, right, on Steam, unless, like you say, $5, then okay, fine, I'll pay that tax. But I'm not buying the game again. And even if I didn't purchase the disc on Xbox, I already have the game because of Game Pass. I'm not buying the game all over again on Steam. And I'm the type of person who, you know, for certain games, if the game is important enough to me, like Project Wingman, if it comes to PS5, if they announce it at E3 or what is left of E3, okay, this summer in June, if they announce Project Wingman is coming to the PS5 with PS VR support, you can guarantee I will purchase it day one, right? Because it's that important to me, right? But generally,
I have to look into that game. I never heard of it.
Right? But generally, right? Like, I'm not purchasing the game all over again. So how can I play Halo Infinite on the Steam Deck if it's not, you know, for streaming, or if you have Game Pass on Windows where you can install the game? That's my only option, because on Steam OS you can't do that. Okay, even if it was compatible with the which I don't think it is, right? With the copy, not the copy protection, the what you call the anti-cheat, right? I think they're having an issue.
Okay, yeah.
But let's say that anti-cheat issue wasn't a thing, because I expect in the future they'll work that out, right? Clearly, right? But even then, I'm not paying $60 to buy the game all over again when I have access to it in Game Pass. Now, as you say, Valve isn't going to allow that. But if Microsoft should come out with some kind of Linux app that would allow me to install these games on the Steam OS side, so like you have Heroic Launcher, okay, Microsoft needs to have an app like that. It would also help them, even though I agree with you when it comes to this cloud thing. The cloud thing really isn't something I use too often or am that interested in for myself, other than the technology, and I think it's cool and all of that, right? But they also need to have a Game Pass app, right, that runs within the Linux of Steam OS, so it, you know, have its own interface or whatever, you know, when you launch it, and it's completely controlled by the controller, and they could pick the game you want to stream and start streaming it, instead of having going the command line to unlock. I don't even know what the command line is. Like I said, I've never messed with the command line on the Steam Deck.
It's not that hard to put Game Pass on there.
Type in real quick, and then it's the browser, and now all of a sudden you could use the browser to launch stuff.
Right.
But that's a jank thing, okay? That's not the type of situation I can give to someone who's just, you know, familiar with consoles and has no experience with computers or anything, and just wants to play games. That's not going to work for them, okay? I have to be able to give them something where they can go to the store, get the app, install the games, and be able to play
out
no
the
problem.
box.
Right, and that's the issue they have.
The only reason why you have to go that backdoor way is because if you just go straight through you can just go to, you know, Game Pass on the edge, but it won't acknowledge the Steam controls.
Right.
Maybe you can Bluetooth it or something. I don't know, but that's the only reason why you have to go through the back door. But
yeah,
it's just too jittery, and it doesn't matter. We got great internet here, but it's still jittery. I can't even play Trek to Yomi on here.
Yeah. So, but but the onus is on Microsoft. You know, they have to release some kind of app, some kind of method that's easy, right? That's on the Steam store, I guess, where it's this little app that you get, and it's good for Game Pass. You know, it handles all the stream. You know, just like the app that they have on, you know, if you have Android, you know, you have the 1 second here. I'm sorry about this. My Alexa reminding me about something.
Stop talking.
But it basically you know, if they had that, you know, for the streaming, and then they need to have some kind of Game Pass app, you know, where it's like Heroic Launcher or something. But you know, it shows it like a game. You download it, so it'll be in your Steam OS, and you can launch that. You know, you pick your games to install or whatever.
You want to play them natively
on your Steam. Yeah, you want to play them native. Yes, you want to be able to play them natively with as little fuss as possible. Console simple, where just controls will be able to use, you know, will be able to navigate said apps, you know, but the onus is on Microsoft to do that, not Valve. Okay, yeah, you could put Game Pass on it, and it's great and it does work. But right now it's jank. You have to put in the command line to get the browser to use it. It's not a dedicated app. They need dedicated apps for this stuff. Once they do that, that will be the next example of, something that they do, where if you don't have a Steam Deck now, by the time you have a Steam Deck, hopefully they'll have this functionality and you won't even notice the hassle because it won't be there for you. But for us, it's a slight hassle. It's really nothing major. Really, this is first world problems here, truly. But if they fixed it to a point where they had these dedicated apps, to make it easier. But like you say, the cloud streaming is not so much for me. But hey, if you like it, that's cool. And I do advocate that they support that. But I do want, the native experience, where you could install the game right into the hardware. It's running on the hardware. I need that. Microsoft needs to get that done.
So real quick, who's responsible for the Heroic Launcher?
That's an open source application. Right? That's a community application. It's open source. It's on GitHub and everything.
It just seems like, because it's like Epic. See, Steam is kind of like their own little walled garden, all while worrying about Microsoft creating one, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really not open to everybody, right? You can do it because it's Linux. And it's also new, so maybe we should give them some time, and maybe Epic does create their own, and maybe Microsoft does.
I totally expect that Microsoft would, not Epic, right? But we do have the Heroic Launcher. But ironically, you bring up the Heroic Launcher. I wouldn't be surprised if the Heroic Launcher gets this functionality before Microsoft implements it on their own, to be frank.
Yeah, because it's basically, it installs Windows apps, I think through Wine or I can't remember, or Proton, I can't remember, but you can see like everything that it's going through. It installs Microsoft Visual something for it to even play the games. Yeah.
Basically, it's doing all the work in the background for you, and that's the whole. Yes, I wouldn't be surprised, if the Heroic Launcher has that functionality even before Microsoft does it themselves. But yeah, man. So,
but at the end of the day, that's competition, and I don't see him being inclined to help anybody do anything on this platform.
I agree, but see, this is where the gaming world is so different now, because Microsoft has the games on Steam and plans to put more in the future. Even PlayStation is putting games on PC. Who would have thunk it? Even last generation, So, hell, anything is possible if Microsoft is willing to put their games on Steam, where you don't need Game Pass or anything, where if you don't have any of these platforms, you just have a PC and you wanted to buy the game outright. Well, Microsoft has you covered, or you could buy it from the Microsoft store or whatever. So, yeah, man. I think we'll get there, though. It's still early days. There's so much potential to be tapped with this device and devices like it in the future. I just think that what Valve did is twofold. Not only do they have this hardware platform in the Steam Deck, and they have an ecosystem, with Steam and whatnot, but also now they have a platform with Steam OS. That's just so clean and easy to use. I feel like it could be a contender for Windows on PC gaming, right? With just a couple of more tweaks and updates, where it could really be a thing where if you don't know nothing from nothing and you're new to all of this, right? It could be a worthy competitor to Windows if you just want to play games on it. Now, I'm not the type, who would ever leave Windows, but hey, I could see it.
I don't see a purpose. Like, just keep your launcher, because Windows is for everything else, right? And I don't see Microsoft really, because until they get rid of the console, I don't see them needing to invest that kind of time to do what Steam has done with their Steam OS, right?
Yeah.
With the whole console big picture mode, because it is super smooth, man. I mean, only time I use it is when I have to. Other than that, I just want to select my game. Because like using Oculus, you to play Steam games, you got to go through big picture. At least that's what I had to do when I was doing it.
Okay. Because I was about to say it's not like that now, but I think it might have been, because I wasn't there in the early days to see it myself. But yeah, but Realist, man, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
It was fun, man.
Yeah, real fun, man. This was just about the Steam Deck. it was really about
I mean, there's so
games in
much more we
general
can
and the
talk about.
market.
I try not to
Yeah,
ask you
truly.
questions so to derail. I know you had your idea of what you wanted to talk about, so I kind of
Oh
let
no,
you
this was
guide it.
yeah, I had a
Because man,
couple
there's
of
a
points,
whole lot
but
of
that's
stuff
all.
that
Oh,
this just opened up a whole new world of conversation for me. Like this whole thing, because I just been when it came to PC, it was mainly just about playing games. I didn't care about anything else. But now my
right,
eyes are open to a whole other side of
right.
this whole gaming space on a PC.
Yeah, but even if you're not interested in all of that, I really think what Valve is providing will get you what you want if you're just concerned about the games. The platform is so easy to use. The cost of entry is quite low on PC. A lot of console dudes like to talk a lot of negative about PC. And a lot of people like to box me in as the PC guy. Dude, I've played games on everything. Yeah, one of my first platforms to play games on was a computer. It was a Commodore 64. But it was a computer, yeah, but we only typed a bunch of commands in there to get the games to run. That was it. We never did any kind of work typing anything. We typed commands to get games to start. And that's all we ever did with that back in the 80s. And that's how I started, my path into gaming, even today on all types of platforms. And I think the Steam Deck, the operating system on the Steam ecosystem, it just works so well. And if you're new to any of this is a platform that will support you. Everything you've had in the past comes forward. You see that a lot with Xbox, but Xbox is just really emulating what the PC was always all about. And it's good to see it on the console side. But if you want to see the depth and breadth of PC games when it comes to indie, AAA, and everything in between, the mods, the community support when it comes to the Steam input with all the controller profiles, and different ideas. Just it opens up the world of PC to people who don't want to have to deal with the complexity of PC, right? But you're getting a good majority of the greatness of PC
Certain
at a
games
low
you do
cost.
have to play around with it.
Yeah, certain games you do, but the majority of that great experience, the greatness of PC, without most of the complexity. That's what the Steam Deck and the Steam OS is providing. And it's a platform that's just growing every day, is getting more and more compatible with games every day. Almost every other day, they're coming out with some kind of update that's adding to functionality and features, or even if it was a feature or function that they've added before, they've tweaked it and improved it and made it better. And they've listened to community, and they just keep doing that. And you see a lot about that in Xbox as well. It's that same mindset. It's that same way that PC likes to do things, but they're making it console simple. It's bridging that gap. And from the hardware that AMD was making all this time, I was following, to what Valve has with the operating system, and now with this hardware, bro, it's a 1-2-3 punch. I really think is helping to drive gaming forward.
Yep, you brought it up earlier, and I didn't want to cut you off. Man, that just really speaks to the seriousness and the attention to detail that they have with the way that they're running these updates. Pretty much daily or every other day, you get a new update. And every now and then, I'll go back and if I'm bored enough, I'll read every update that just to see the work that they've been doing. Now, my thing is, you can't listen to people all the time, and I don't want them to get caught in a perpetual loop of just constantly trying to, I guess, show this perception that they're always listening and they're always working. Like, Steam has garnered, the reputation of their community. They are believers, and they know that Steam has been working in the best interest of gamers. You don't want to do too much, because Apple said it, and it's true. People really don't know what they want.
They don't know what they want you to show them. Yeah.
You can't just keep getting caught into all these updates. Do what you do. That's why, like, a lot of people, they get on to Microsoft about not changing fast enough. No, because sometimes you don't even know you like something until you really give it a try. And
Microsoft gets more flack when they change stuff than when they don't, to be honest.
I'm talking about Xbox. Now Windows is a wholly different thing.
It's the same thing in both situations.
It always gets the job done for me.
Yeah.
Like Word works, everything works. So I don't have any complaints. But when it comes to when I say Microsoft, I mean like Xbox. They're always like, well, they need to change this, they need to change that. No, I mean, try it first. Eventually you might grow to realize that you don't need a 4K dashboard if we can save RAM on the other side. It's
Yeah.
things like that. But I don't want them to get caught up in the changing too much. I want them to, find something that's coherent and stick with it. Because some of the things that these people complain about is, they'll change it and then change it back. No, put something out there. Let's see. Let's see if they grow to like it instead of constantly changing these things. But it's been a great experience so far, man. And only thing I need from Valve now is to make games.
Yeah, I would love to see the continuation to the Half-Life story. Alex was great as a prequel. Great game. It's unfortunate that a lot of people haven't played because it's on VR and it's on PC VR. Hopefully, for Valve's best interest, they put that on the PlayStation because that's the only platform that has VR besides PC, right? They really should put that on PlayStation VR. Microsoft would do great if they, partnered with Oculus, to have Oculus compatibility with the Xbox. And that way they don't have to make their own device or whatever.
Yeah,
that's other conversations.
So you on Oculus?
Yeah, I've got a Quest 2.
All right.
I used to have a mixed reality headset on Lenovo from Microsoft. I used to have one of their headsets, but I replaced it with a Quest 2.
Man. I get caught up in this early adopter stuff sometimes, man, and sometimes I can just see something not working before it doesn't work. But to answer your question earlier, before you get off, the game Not Tonight, it's the publisher is No More Robots. That's who that guy Mike Rose.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and I'm not really into it, but the story, because part 1 is about the British government, part 2 is the American government. And he said he really wishes that he could put him in Game Pass, but he knows America is not gonna. He knows that Microsoft is not gonna put a video game about American corruption on Game Pass. Because he's got a lot of games in Game Pass.
I don't know if he's so accurate about that. He should try.
If he got Descenders and those other games in there, I'm pretty sure that if they wanted it in there, it'd be in there because it's a great game. It's rated 9 out of 10 on Steam.
Cool. Well, you know what? I'm gonna have to check that out. But I'm sure it's gonna be on my my backlog. But because of this Steam Deck, man, I've been attacking that backlog. So maybe one day will get to try it out. I'll probably buy it. I'll sit on it for 3 to 4 years before I finally play it. But
I'm playing Ziggurat too, man.
Yeah. See,
you ever heard that?
I've heard this name before. That's the thing with Steam. There's so many games. I've heard of so many games, man. Just so many, big and small, man. They're just fun. And wow.
They keep suggesting me these cartoon games. They're not really
keep
games.
Buying them.
They're really
so they're gonna keep suggesting them to you. Yeah.
I mean, they're like $2. It's like, why not?
Yep.
So I got a lot of these little cartoon. I don't know what you call. Is it anime? I don't know. Because they're like, what do you call them, visual novels or whatever?
Yeah, visual novels. So it's kind of like a text adventure, but graphics.
Yeah,
and pictures.
But I am gonna let you go, man.
Yeah, man. But thanks a lot.
Because you did say bye earlier.
Yeah. But no, man, it's cool. We had another 5 or 6 minutes left, but I just want to thank you once again for coming on and doing this with me, man. Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt, man. Once I heard that you had the Steam, because I had no idea that you was interested in getting one. I didn't know you was on the list and waiting on yours.
Every time you need support, bro, you always say, well, Eli tries it. Yeah, you got that go right, man. If it's something I want, I'm gonna try it, man. And a handheld PC in my hand, something that I've always imagined, bro. Like,
yeah, man. Yeah, man.
I had a pocket PC. I used to play those Windows games on my Windows phones. Like this is Linux, but man, you have a real PC in your hands, bro.
Yeah. The big thing about it is, like I said, I was following what AMD had. I was waiting until they got past Vega because I knew at that point it was when they passed the line of there's enough power within that APU in the Steam Deck to run most things, right? Okay, maybe you might have to drop down the frame rate down to 30 frames, or you might have to drop down a couple of settings, right? But it's the full meal, real deal AAA game. If it's The Witcher or Doom Eternal, it's the real thing, not cut down, not, they dropped the resolution where it's blurry as hell and they removed all the textures, because they couldn't fit in the menu like they do with the Switch. Not trying to knock the Switch. on purpose.
Switch is
this time
trash.
anyway. But the Switch is
But
trash.
the
when it comes
games
to
are
that.
great.
Right, but the games are great. I'd rather play them on my Switch in higher resolution and higher frame rate. That's just me. But I'm just saying, the potential is there for so many great things. It's created a platform. It's created a line, a lineage that's going to come from other manufacturers, more than just Valve. And I think this is just the beginning. The Steam Deck is just going to be the first of many.
Bro,
the
isn't that
Steam
a
OS
downer?
could really be a platform. That's not
Isn't
a downer.
that a downer, bro?
That's
Bro, it's
not.
a
That's
downer that
wonderful.
they about to drop a brand new console in about 3 months and make my whole little Steam Deck look like nothing.
Hey man, but it will cost
And
3 times the price. So that and that will be the balance. That will be the balance.
Do you think that the Steam Deck will have like a similar cycle to other consoles, like 5 years?
I don't know about 5 years.
Because it's already behind, bro.
It's already behind, but that's the thing about it. Like the Steam Deck, there's gonna be the GPD, whatever, and INEO, and when you have like 2 minutes left.
I'm not doing that, bro. I'm not doing that anymore. Like the reason why I got the Steam Deck, like we talked in the DM, and the reason why I went with the Steam Deck is because it's a company I know.
Right.
And the guy Gabe knew. There are very few people who are in leadership positions that I hate to say believe in.
Yeah.
And so that's why I went with the Steam Deck.
He's earned your trust, basically. Yeah, he's earned our trust. And
so if it doesn't come from him, I'm not buying it.
Well, I'll evaluate everything on its own merits, but from what I'm seeing, even though there will be hardware that's more powerful out there for whatever cost, right? What Valve has is a good balance of price, clearly, performance, and everything else that the competition will have a hard time to beat. Right, the supporting and all of that.
Buy something by a smaller company and not enough people buy it, they'll stop supporting it.
Yeah, but the Valve Steam Deck, man, even when it's outclassed by other devices 2 years from now, when it's looking old, crusty, and dusty in comparison, look at the Switch. If it works for the Switch, it'll damn sure work for the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck is attracting so many more types of people, gamers, and the price is right compared to what the competition has. Not that the competition isn't trying, because INEO has a little light version coming out, but
they can compete
price wise exactly, but they'll try
because they don't have a storefront.
They
Valve is trying to sell.
They're just trying to sell hardware, so that'll be that.
Well, see, okay, that's why it's $1,400-$1,500. Valve wants to sell you software, just like Microsoft, just like Sony, just like Nintendo. But Nintendo is going to make about $25 per unit.
Yep. But we have less than 2 minutes here, so I'm definitely going to leave it there. But
all right, man.
Realist, we gotta have a part 2 of this conversation. I feel like there's so many more aspects of this conversation that we could hit upon. So maybe we need to do a part 2 in the future. We'll have to we'll sit back and talk about that. Yeah. So thank you once again, and
peace out, man. If it's
thanks
11
everybody.
o'clock here, it's 12 o'clock there.
It's about to be in about 10 minutes. So once again, thanks a lot for coming out, and thanks again. Peace.
All right, man. See you.